Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be part of our strategy management webinar. And it's great to see all of y'all joining us today live. Okay. So for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I'm Jerusalem, an innovation consultant at Actio, and I'll be your host for today. Right. So at Actio, we offer a SaaS solution that helps integrate strategy, performance, people and process, and even risk in one integrated platform. So the idea is that to move from fragmented solutions to one integrated platform. Right. So that's what we offer at Actio. But for today, we have a session that is dedicated to showing you the best way to manage your strategy. Right. So we'll be focusing on the limitation of having a fragmented tools such as spreadsheet, PowerPoint, Power BI, and even PMO tools to help you with your strategy management. Right. So we're going to show you like how you can move from this to one integrated platform. And by this would include aligning all your objectives, KPIs, OKRs, and even initiatives, and also including risks in one place. And also you can have easily identify whenever there is a goal deviation and manage your corrective actions. Right. So this is a part of an ongoing series that we have. So every month we'll be delving into different topics, inviting different guests to be our speakers and having different formats. But for today, it would be a demo. But other times that we will have case studies from companies or expert interviews on different topics. Right. Okay. So before we jump today, I just have a quick reminder, right? So we have a community that we have built with professionals from the same background as you, from strategy and performance. And this is a space that we create where you can go and share your insights or learn from peers and even have a conversation there. And so we'll be putting in the link here. So please go and join our community. And also while we have the webinar, please feel free to drop in your questions at any time. So we'll be picking them up along the way and addressing them during as we go along, or even have a dedicated time at the end for all your questions. Right? And also, we would really appreciate it if you can fill our feedback form. Right, it's going to be a very short survey, and it will really help us improve on how we conduct our future sessions. Okay, so for today we have a speaker, Guilherme Barbassa, who is the CEO of Actio Software. He's the one who's been like the driving force behind our platform. He has intensive experience in consulting, which helps bring his expertise into creating a platform that helps transfer strategy into measurable results. All right, so over to you, Guilherme.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to our monthly webinar. Today we're going to have a dynamic a little bit different, right? Like you mentioned, usually it's more of a debate around some topic of strategy management. But today we're going to take a look at the tools to support these processes. So in our talk, we're going to start just creating some context for you about what is the landscape of like tools to support methodologies or management models in a more general manner, and what are the problems that these tools are generating in organizations in the day-to-day. And finally, we're going to dive into what are the methodologies and the root of these problems and how these things can, these methodologies can come together into one integrated platform, where we will dive into the software, take a look at everything that we're talking about, but in practice, in the software, how strategy management integrates with performance management and with goal cascading and with continuous improvement and project and portfolio, how all of this come together in one single platform, and how you can create a layer of governance on top of all of that, right? Of how do you actually manage these results with, dashboards, meetings, presentations, reports to the board, and so on. Since we have a small group today, feel free to interact at any moment, right? I'm gonna ask Mateus to unblock the microphone. So if you want to interact, calling us through the microphone, you will be able to do so, or even in the chat, right? We're going to keep an eye on the chat so that if you write, be it a comment or a question, we're going to try to address it as soon as possible. All right, let's dive into it then, Iruslam. First, I will share my screen with you just to go through a presentation to create a context for everybody. So when we talk about performance, we have a series of management practices around performance in general, or strategy and performance in the organizations, right? And all of these methodologies and business practices that are designed to optimize organizational performance generate best practices and methodologies, and each of these methodologies will need a software or an app to support it, right? So you probably have something on one-on-ones in your organization. How do you do one-on-ones? How do you support that with technology or balanced scorecard or budget management or OKRs and BIs and risk managements and MBO for goal cascading and COSO for risk action plans and so on. There are so many business practices nowadays, and each of these business practices require or end up generating actually an ecosystems of softwares to support that business practice. So when you talk about OKRs, you have a host of softwares and apps to support OKRs, and the same thing for COSO or 9-in-box calibration in people assessment and so on, right? So this generated a phenomenon in the market that people call app sprawl or SaaS sprawl, right? So this proliferation of apps that we have a data here in this chart is generated by Gartner, right? So they every so often do a survey with organizations asking how many SaaS solutions do they have in place. And in 2015, on average, organizations had only 8, right? And this grew and had a boom with COVID and continued growing up to 2022, where an organization had on average 130 apps or softwares, SaaS apps or softwares, right? I was talking to one of our clients a couple of weeks ago, and they clocked more than 400 softwares within their organization. 400 softwares. So this started to become a problem because people don't know where the information is anymore. And if you have this amount of softwares, 130, it's practically impossible for you to integrate all that into a comprehensive management model, right? So you start to have fragmentation. And this trend generated all of these problems of managing all of these suppliers, integrating all of this data, just the complexity and overwhelming that employees have of notifications and where to get the information, where do they have to register, a certain data, that this trend started to reverse, right? And start with app consolidation. So the last measurement we have is 2024 with 106. That is 18% less apps on average per company. Even though the SaaS budget has continued to grow year on year, the number of apps is reducing. That means that organizations want less apps that do more things, right? They don't want one app for each individual business practice. They want platforms, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about this, or actually a lot about this today. Right? How can you bring together all of these methodologies into a platform and substitute 3, 4, 5, 6 different apps or softwares with one that does more, right? Well, in Actio, we have a platform that goes beyond just the knowledge sphere of strategy and performance. We also tackle risk, process management, and people management as well, because we see this as an integrated model, a business model, right? Where strategy should communicate with risk, communicate with processes and people, and also performance, right? So today we're going to focus more on strategy and performance because this is a strategy webinar, right? But just so you know, we also have within the same platform solutions for risk, process management, and people management. Okay, so in this sphere of knowledge, strategy, and performance, what are we talking about? What's within that category, right? First, strategy management per se, right? So when we talk about strategy management, it's not just the strategy formulation. It's the whole cycle of strategy management, which begins with the formulation, with definition of what is your strategy, your organizational strategy. And this usually generates a strategy map, for example, with strategic objectives. And you can have behind, one level down, the projects and portfolios that are going to support the strategy or the initiatives, and the main KPIs with which you will measure if the strategy is being implemented or not. So when we talk about strategy formulation, it's the whole strategy definition, and the output is usually a strategy map, objectives, KPIs, and initiatives. But that is still very broad. Like you can have initiatives, just the name of the initiative, but you don't have the detail of the initiative. Or you can have a KPI, but you don't have how you're going to improve on that KPI. So the next stage of strategy management, the way we define it, is to plan, to detail how are we going to implement that strategy. So the output here is a strategic plan with not only what is going to be done, but how and by who, right? And the next stage is actually execute on that plan, make it happen, execute the projects and initiatives, execute the action plans, all the way down to the operational level. You will establish a system of monitoring how the strategy is going, how not only the execution is going, but the strategy as a whole, right? So is the strategy delivering what it promised, or do we have to rethink the strategy? And also monitoring the execution itself, keeping up, with the projects. Are they being executed on time, on budget? Are they delivering the promised results? Are the action plans on the operational level being executed to elevate the performance on the KPIs? So this is a monitoring system that usually involves meetings, right? And monthly presentations. When you're closer to operations, you can have these meetings, even weekly meetings, or in some cases, even daily meetings that consolidate, right? And all the way on the board level, you usually have quarterly meetings reporting on the execution and effectiveness of the strategy. But all of this system, we call it monitoring the strategy. And finally, a control system. So an interaction system, right? If we're monitoring the strategy and the strategy is not delivering on the results it's promised, you have to interfere with the plan and reformulate, be it on the level of strategy or any tactical level below the strategic level. So this is just a context I'm creating for you to first level the understanding of what do I mean when I say strategy management, right? So when I say strategy management, it's this full cycle: formulate, plan, execute, monitor, and control. But on organizations, strategy management is a part of this sphere of knowledge of strategy and performance, right? You also have the performance management. So here it's usually biased toward financial results and reports, and even operational KPIs, connecting those with data and being able to go into like business intelligence systems and drill down into the data to understand the performance that is happening in the organization. So in some organizations, this is very detached from strategy, which in my understanding should not be, right? But many times performance management is within the CFO scope of work, while strategy management may be a separate department. So it's very common to see even different KPIs or definitions of the KPIs. So strategy management and performance management, in our understanding, should be part of the same business model, right? And not different sets of information. And we also have a goal cascading. So how do you take the strategy, the objectives, the main deliverables, all the way down the hierarchy of the organization? How do you make sure that if the operation is meeting their goals, that the strategy is also being implemented? So this system of cascading throughout the organization, the strategy and the expected performance, is what we call goal cascading. You have a few business practice for that, MBOs, or management by objectives, or OKRs, and there are even within balanced scorecard, you have that execution premium book, right, that describes describes a model for goal cascading, for taking to the body of the organization or the corporation the strategy, right? Taking it down to where things are actually happening. And once you're down there, you also have operational excellence, which is very common in especially like manufacturing or process-oriented organizations, where you come in with continuous improvement models and more tactical actions to guarantee that you're delivering as expected and not slipping back into worse performance practices. So this is also one aspect of what we call the business model or performance strategy and performance model. And again, should not be disconnected from strategy, performance, or goal cascading. Should be a single way to manage performance, right? And we also have project and portfolio management, which again, in many organizations is detached from strategy and performance. They create a PMO, a different department, where they deliver the projects to be managed. That many comes from strategy, others comes from operational excellence or performance management. And this department is focused on executing the projects and the portfolio, but many times they lose sight of why they're doing it, right? They get the mission of execute this, but not why you're executing this. So the strategy can change throughout, the year or years, but the command on executing the project and portfolio is still there. And you can be doing something that is not even relevant anymore for the organization, but it's detached, right? So the whole idea of a management model is to bring these aspects, these perspectives together into one single model, which should be supported by one single platform, right? Why, when you start using different technologies, different softwares for each of these perspectives, the fragmentation of the business management model is going to happen, right? Because the day-to-day interface of people with the management model is the software, right? That's where they log in, that's where they do things. So if the software is fragmented, the model will be fragmented. That's why we're a big advocate for an integrated management platform or strategy and performance platform that embraces all of these aspects. And these are not only the only aspects, right? You have many other perspectives on strategy and performance, like ESG or board reporting or individual goals, if you take it down to that level of goals, or business transformation offices. So all of these are different aspects, different takes on the same management model, or should be, right? This is conceptual. Right? What we usually see are the business practices. So balanced scorecard or project PMBOK or Six Sigma optimization, continuous improvement, Scrum, Agile. That's what are the methodologies on top of the model. And this is what is usually communicated to the organization. But again, that's where fragmentation starts, right? Because if you separate Kaizen from Lean, and you start treating that as different things, you will have different softwares, you will have different practices, and the model starts to break down, right? So I'm talking too much, creating this context. I will jump into the software and show you how this is done, right? How can you bring together not only these perspectives on strategy and performance, but also all of those spheres of knowledge of strategy and performance, risk, process, and people, right? So Jerusalem, if you want to contribute here, feel free to jump in. And also, our audience, feel free to jump in and make a comment or write a question here on the chat or a comment. We'll be glad to interact with you. Okay, so jumping in here, I entered a demo base for the software where I'm seeing a strategy map in the balanced scorecard model. But this strategy map can actually take many forms, right? Any form that you you wish to work. So if you have something in the lines of ESG perspective on corporate performance, you can have a ESG map here to navigate through them. I just put here. So I have here an example of a ESG report. So it can be on top of the same data, KPIs, projects that are also connected to balanced scorecard, but here they're feeding into a different report, right? Where I have the environmental, social, governance aspect and the items here, even a materiality matrix and so on. So let me get another example for you guys, maybe MBO model. So how is this cascading throughout the organization, right? So I can have here an MBO model with, let me put another date here so I can, 3, I think I'm gonna have some data. Where I have add value to the shareholder and how is this broken down into the departments and the business units for the organization. Okay. So here now I have some slides for us to see how they're going, performance of the last month or the accumulated year-to-date performance, right? And also maybe something more operational, like a process relationship map. So I'm not going to look at strategy per se. I'm going to look at the operation, the value chain within the organization, right? So what are the macro processes? What are the processes within this macro process and how it all comes together into an operational map, right? Here in a healthcare example. So the macro processes and within each macro process, the process. So it's also corporate performance, but here I'm looking at the processes, the performance of each individual process and not the strategy per se. So depends on the analysis that you want to do at each moment. If you go through balanced scorecard model or ESG or a more process-oriented performance model, depends on what you're analyzing, right? But you can create your own maps here, your own way to show corporate performance. And for each of the elements in these maps, be it a process or a strategic objective or a topic on ESG, you can interact with it. You can click on it and navigate through it to make sure to understand what's behind each of these objectives. So let's drill into this add value to the shareholder and understand what's behind that, since it's not meeting its target, right? So I'm going to click on it, ask to see what's behind that objective. And I can see here that we have KPIs. So this is the objective, right? Add value to the shareholder. I have a couple of KPIs here, EBITDA margin and EBITDA. I also have a portfolio of projects here supporting this objective, and also have a risk attached or connected to this objective, and also an OKR, an objective key result. So the idea here is just to show that even though I was navigating through a balanced scorecard model, I can connect with this model, OKRs or project portfolios, or even risk management or process management KPIs connected to this particular strategic objective, right? So this is the first level of drilling down from the objective. And I can go further. So this KPI, EBITDA, is still a very broad KPI. It summarizes all of the operation. And I'm not meeting this goal, right? So my problem is not the margin per se, but the EBITDA itself. So let's see what's going on here in EBITDA, right? I have OpEx that is okay. It's operational expenditure is meeting the targets. So with product cost, that's not the issue. But revenue, I have some serious problems here with revenue. And I, again, have a couple of risks connected to my EBITDA KPI. I'm not going to drill down on risks right now. Let's take a look at revenue. So I'm going to drill down the next level here. So revenue, I have revenue British Columbia, Ontario, Alberta, and Manitoba, all Canadian provinces. And my problem is concentrated in British Columbia. So just going back, we were at a strategic level with a strategy map. I clicked on one objective, drilled down that objective all the way to almost operational KPIs, right? KPIs that are very close to the execution level in the organization. So a sales team for British Columbia is responsible for this KPI, right? And for this target. So here we're seeing an example of goal cascading from the strategy management, right? So two of those perspectives that we talked about. And here we're going to see a third one. So I'm looking at revenue British Columbia. I'm not meeting the target. I know that if I have a target, I'll have someone responsible for that target. And that person is here, the person accountable for that target. It's Luciano. When Luciano received this target, he could have made an action plan. So what is he going to do? What's his team going to do to meet that particular target? So I can see Luciano's action plan with what's going to be done, who's going to do it, what's the status of each action. I can see here a Gantt chart, right? And I can open and close sub-activities. And the software will help follow up on these action plans. It'll send automatic emails. It'll send notifications to my mobile app in the cell phone. It'll interact with my teams, right? So if I have our software integrated with Teams, I'll have here, you see Actio software. If I have any action that is delayed or some KPI that I have to update or a meeting I have to participate, I'll have this red dot with the number of actions that I have to take. And within teams, within everybody's day-to-day work tool, you know? So it's a way to engage people with the organization's strategy management and performance management. Going back, I can also see this action plan as a Kanban, right? So it's the same exact action plan. It's just a different way to interact with it. Here I can click on the tickets and just drag it to doing or done, right? And I can open a specific ticket here, see the details of this ticket, what's going on, what's the task management for this ticket, okay, cost, and so on. So it's a full action plan task management tool as well. And let's go back. So we cascaded the goal all the way down to operational level. We had a KPI here that is not being delivered, a target that is not being delivered, and a person responsible that did an action plan and is executing on his action plan. But even though he's executing on his action plan, he did not meet the target. So the software can ask him, then it goes into that operational excellence perspective that we talked about of continuous improvement. So if a target wasn't met, the software will ask for an analysis. Why wasn't it met? And what are you going to do about it so that next month you won't have the same bad performance, right? So the first thing that Luciano will do, person responsible for this target, is to understand what's happening. So he can click here on the KPI and go into an analytics dashboard. Here we're integrated with Power BI so that he can go down into the data, into a more refined granularity of data to understand what's going on behind that KPI. So here you have all of the analytics tools that you have within Power BI, right? To understand what's going on. And once you've done that, you can fill in the deviation report saying, what are your conclusions, right? What are the facts? What happened? What are the causes? Why did that happen, right? And for the causes, you have a series of tools you can use within, continuous improvement models. So you can use like Ishikawa, you can use just brainstorming, right? 5 whys, prioritization, and whatever causes you elect as fundamental causes, you can just click on the star, and these causes will be listed here for you to create action plans, right? So I can create an action plan or just link an action that is already ongoing. So I have a few actions already ongoing here. And here you can also use the AI. So throughout the software, I don't know if you notice, like in projects and action plans, you have our Actio AI to help the end user execute on this management task that they should do, right? In this case, find causes for goal deviations. So you can just click on it and interact with the AI that can guide the user through this process, right? Just suggesting potential causes or interacting with the users, guiding, making questions to the user so that the user will come to the conclusions that they need, or just reviewing the causes that are already listed. And this AI, it's not generic. It's specific to that company. So all of the data relative to this KPI were fed into the AI, and all of the strategic plan, tactical plans, operational procedures, processes were fed into this AI as well. So it was trained on the company's data. It's not just a generic AI, right? It's going to interact with the end user with the company's context, right? So once you have the causes and the actions, you're going to execute on the actions that you just defined, and the software will monitor this execution as well. So I described here very quickly operational excellence model, right? You have a target, you have an action plan to meet the target. If you have an improvement expected on that KPI, and the KPI's performance, you have goal deviation treatments. So if you did not meet the target, the software will be proactive in asking for analysis and treatment, and will follow up on the actions, the corrective actions that were defined, right? So
Okay.
just go ahead, Yerson.
Yeah, if I could ask you one question here. So you've shown us a model that integrates like different methodologies, right? And so from your experience, like working from different organizations, what does a company need to have in place first before implementing a strategy management solution like this?
Okay. Well, the input necessary is some level of strategy measurement or performance measurement. I won't even say strategy at this point, because you can have organizations in many different maturity levels. You can have organizations that are very mature in strategy management and have been doing that for years now, and refining its process year on year, and taking it, to more levels down the organization, and involving, engaging with more people. And you can have organizations that are just starting with this, and you may even not have a formal strategy. You just have performance management, like with targets and goals, and a plan to meet those goals. So what's the minimum? It's to have a plan, right? To have what are the targets that you want to meet, and who's going to do what to meet that target, right? So everything that I'm showing here is very customizable per organization, right? It's not even customizable. It's just you tweak on the parameters in the software to adjust the software to the maturity level of each organization, right? So if an organization doesn't have a formal strategy or a cascading process, you can still use the software in the very basic, like what are the targets for the year, and how is each, C-level person going to contribute to that target. So just one level of cascading, let's say, and you start like that, and you start generating the meetings, the presentations, the dashboards. And once you start doing that, naturally, you're going to have a need to cascade and evolve on your management model, right? And the input starts to grow with time, right? Year on year. So the initial input would be just, the KPIs and the projects for the year. And start measuring that, start displaying that for the organization, and the evolution comes naturally, right? So I talked about cascading of KPIs, but we also have projects, right, or initiatives. Here we have a portfolio of projects. This is not a strategic initiatives, is not one project. It's a group of projects, right? So we are touching on the fifth perspective there, projects and portfolios. But the differentiation here is that I'm not executing projects just because. This portfolio is connected to a strategic objective. I can see clearly why I'm doing this and never lose sight of the objective of why we're doing a certain project or a certain portfolio. Here, I can open this portfolio into the projects or programs in this case that are consolidated in this portfolio, and the programs by open them up into projects also, and risks and KPIs and so on, right? And for each of these, I have a full model of a project management model behind each of these projects. And I can, again, click on them, see, a responsibility matrix, status reports for the project that the project management manager can be filling in every week or every month. Here I'm in a portfolio, so I don't know if I'm going to have status reports here. I can, like the summary of the project, I can have the initial approval sheet for the project and the action plan. So the detail of this portfolio. Since it's a portfolio, I'm seeing here many projects, right? And each of these projects I can open into their details. Okay. And again, the software will follow up on these actions for each person responsible for the actions, and send automatic emails and notifications and so on. On top of all of this, of the objectives, KPIs, projects, risks, OKRs, and so on, I think it's even worth showing a little bit of the OKRs, right, that I haven't shown. So I clicked here on OKRs within the same platform, and I have a series of objectives here per area or department, and each objective with the key results. Each of the key results, I have, the check-ins and the performance. So I can take a look at the check-ins. I can see the initiatives for each of these key results, the confidence level. Nobody put confidence levels here. If they're going to meet or not these key results. Okay, so it's a full OKR software, with the distinction that these OKRs are not in a separate technology, in a separate database. I can see why this objective was defined, right? So I can connect it with the strategy, I can connect it with projects and so on, right? And you have a series of dashboards you can create to see what's going on, like with different perspectives. You can aggregate all of these information in different dashboards. Okay, these dashboards are interactive. You can click on a project and navigate through the project, right? You can click on a KPI and navigate through that, and you can create your own dashboard here. You have a dashboard editor, and well, have a series of dashboards that are interesting here. Let me see. OEE could be an interesting, but I have a mining process here. Let me see another value chain. Let's see. This one could be interesting just to see organization's value chain. With the macro processes, I can click on these processes, go into, a different dashboard to show this macro process or the support processes and the results that are generated for the interested parts, right? And we also have meetings. So how do I have I said in the beginning that we had a governance layer on top of all of this. This governance layer, you can create your own presentations, right, within the software. Let's say here, monthly performance meeting. So you can have your presentation here, which once we activate this meeting, it's going to go into presentation mode, right? So we can just go slide by slide, and you don't have to spend time preparing, PowerPoint presentations. It's ready here. And you can have your own individual dashboard with everything that is yours, right? So I can see I have I'm involved in 8 OKRs. I have 2 active KPIs, 3 projects, I have 0 delayed actions. And I have also my calendar. So everything that I have to do, I have some risk report I have to do here. I have some pending control reviews. I have some action and so on, right? So you can create a meeting also for results meetings, for example. And all of this comes together into scorecards. So you can have, each manager's scorecard with their own grade here. Mine is 59.96. And you can connect this with bonus, right? So bonus shouldn't be, or variable compensation shouldn't be a different data set of KPIs, targets, and projects. It should be the same data set, right? So here I can see why I'm at this level. So I have these KPIs or projects within my scorecard. The weight, I scored 0 in this KPI because I'm very below the target. So I can see the curve here. So once I scored 0, if I add up all of the pondered value with the weight, how many points I got with the weight, I get my scorecard, my score, almost 60, and this would establish the bonus I get in the end of the year. And I can also see everybody that is a direct report to me, right? So how are they doing and what's their scorecard? So I can see everybody that is a direct report to me and why each one has that particular scorecard. I'm not seeing the chat here, but Houston, if you have an interaction with the chat, you can just call it out to me, okay?
Okay.
Do you want to talk a little bit about goal negotiation? How did we get to this scorecard, right? Why do I have 4 items in my scorecard with this weight and with these targets? Can you show a little bit of that, Jerusalem, in the final minutes here that we have? I think it's interesting to see how that cascading that I talked about in the beginning is actually done in the software, how the software supports not only the viewing of the scorecard throughout the year, but also the negotiation process that happens in the beginning of the year or the end of the previous year, so that people will be committed to their targets and projects.
Sure, I can show this part quickly. Okay, I'm gonna steal the screen. Okay. So as Guy mentioned, the software allows not only just managing or viewing your scorecard throughout the year, but you can even start with the negotiation part, right? At the start of the year, companies would set up for different roles. They would have different KPIs, right? And you would want to involve the employees in the goal cascading process, right? You don't just want it to be top down, but what this how it's usually done is just that like emails with a lot of back and forth. So what we have here is a tool that allows you to do this like back and forth. You can design the approval flow, and which would make it so much easier for people who are managing this process, right? So one example that I have here is for this function, commercial head, there are two people that are going to be sharing the score, right? And then now it says Celia, and then I see that there are three stages, right? Three stage means that it has going to go to three different people. So it's going to start by defining the goals by, like, for Cecilia, the employee herself, and then the manager is going to review it. So you would see the person name if there's here. And also at the end, it's going to go to the HR to review it, right? So that's the stage. And currently we're in the first stage. Okay, and I'm going to open this to see my goals, right? So I see that there are two indicators that are already predefined that I cannot be negotiating on, but I can add these to have 50%, but the rest I could be negotiating, right? So here I can change this one to the weights to 10%, and then I can select the indicators, right? So not all of them is going to be available, but you can still restrict it by saying, okay, these are like the set of KPIs that you can select from, and that person can select whichever is they think applies to their role and put the weight, and then maybe add one more. This is again, but make sure that it's okay. I see that now it's 100%, and I see the annual target, and I'm going to submit this approval, right? And when I submit it, it's going to go to my manager, and then eventually to the HR. But if they don't agree with this, they can always forward it back, return it back to me. Right? So this is how the system allows to create individual cards for employees while involving them in the process. Right? So it starts from the very beginning, the goal negotiation part, and throughout the year, once it's approved, it's going to appear like what Guy showed earlier in the scorecard, and people can track their bonus throughout the year. Yeah.
Right. So this was a very quick presentation, right? Just to give you a taste of what the software is capable of doing, and how can all of these practices come together into a single platform, right? Usually I say that what happened with ERPs back in the 90s, right, is happening now with this layer of software, the management layer of software, where you had a bunch of individual apps and softwares that didn't talk to each other coming together into a bigger platform. Well, thank you very much for participating. We're on our time here. Thank you, Ruslan. And I just ask again, reinforce that the feedback form is very important for us. to improve on our webinars. So if you could take a couple of minutes just to fill them in, we'd be very grateful. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
See you on the next webinar.
And thanks, Guilherme.
Thanks.